There's an African proverb that says you don't become a man until your father dies. I didn't give a shit what anybody else said. You could get 20,000 people in a room saying, Andrew, you're wrong. Didn't care. But if my dad said I was wrong, shit, I was wrong. I know my son will be a good person. He will be born with morality, and he will understand that his father sacrificed himself for the good of the world. So that in and of itself, it should be endless motivation. If anyone's watching this, if you love your parents, you can't be a loser anymore. Losing my father was bad. Me and my father were exceptionally close. But it's a natural part of human evolution. As you grow, you're going to lose your parents. This is what happens, right? It's going to suck, but the only alternative is that you die before them, and I think that's worse because it's not natural, right? And there's an African proverb that says you don't become a man until your father dies, and I can confirm that to be true. It's coming,
yeah,
and it's sudden, and it's instant, and it's brutal.
Yeah.
And but all the trauma, like all of the pain associated with that experience, it teaches you. It taught me, at least. I all of a sudden almost remembered every conversation I ever had with him. Like I was talking to the guy every day, right? I was talking to the guy all the time. But once he's gone, you remember all the times he was right and you didn't quite understand. All the times he was saying things you didn't quite get. All the times you talked back and you were absolutely and utterly incorrect. I've been wrong this whole time, right? So it teaches you a whole bunch about yourself. And it also, for me, what it did was make it clear to me that I'm no longer a student and it's time to become a teacher. Yeah. And also, my scenario with my father was very unique because he was the only person on the planet I allowed to check my thinking. Even at the age of 25, 26, I had asked my dad if I was right. I didn't give a shit what anybody else said. You could get 20,000 people in a room saying, Andrew, you're wrong. Didn't care. But if my dad said I was wrong, shit, I was wrong. So once he wasn't around to check my thinking, I had to check my own thinking a lot harder, a lot more carefully. So yeah, I mean, that was a terrible experience. I miss him like the deserts miss the rain, but that's his life, right? The only alternative is worse. I don't think he would have been able to actually function if he lost me. So this is how it goes, and it's coming for all of us. What's actually kind of amazing is he is mentioned and talked about now so often on the internet because of my massive fame. So I've kept him alive. By becoming so successful, people are interested in my origin, which makes people talk about him. So it's kind of like, if you have a duty to your bloodline and a duty to your ancestors and you truly love your parents, how can you still be sitting at home playing video games being a lazy piece of shit? Don't you want people to remember them? Don't you want people to think, wow, who's this person who raised this amazing person? So that in and of itself, it should be endless motivation. If anyone's watching this, if you love your parents, you can't be a loser anymore. Like, otherwise they're going to be forgotten along with you.
But we're all going to be forgotten in the end.
Perhaps, but there can be different, perhaps this is true, but there will be different evolutions of fables. There are still stories we tell from 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. And I tell the story of my father, and my son will tell the story of me, and his son will tell the story of him. And we will all be so influential that the name Tate will live forever. And this is what gave me solace. But this solace that you find after your father's passing, that solace for me also gave me a massive sense of responsibility and duty. I can't now not be who I am, which goes back to earlier when you were saying, well, they're going to get you. How do you sleep at night? Because I can't not do this, because by doing this, my father is remembered, and I will be remembered. And my son will be born and instilled with a sense of duty, which will make him impossible to program by the matrix. So I know my son will be a good person. He won't be a piece of shit like all these other children. He will be born with morality, and he will understand that his father sacrificed himself for the good of the world. So yes, I don't like being alone in a dark car park, of course. But also, what's the alternative? To say, Dad, sorry, they offered me some money. Is that the alternative? I don't know, but maybe some people can sign up to that, but I certainly can't. I think everybody on the planet has something to prove. If you walk through life and feel like you have nothing to prove, then you're a loser. If you wake up each day and go, I don't owe anybody anything, I don't have to prove anything to anybody, then you are a loser because you are absolutely not incorrect. You must prove yourself to other people. You must prove yourself to your bloodline, as we just discussed. You must prove yourself to God. God hates the lazy. He can't stand them. If he gives you all these genetic dispositions and these natural God-given gifts, if you have 2 arms and 2 legs and you can think, and you're not trying your absolute best, that's the reason you're not lucky. He doesn't like you. He likes the people which show him the beauty of his own creation. He likes to give somebody building blocks and them to build something amazing. It's the best thing about being a man. You get to build who you are, right? You can decide if you want to be a funny comedian or a musician or a kickboxing world champion or fight the Matrix. You can decide whatever you want to be. God loves to see that. Those people, for some reason, seem to be enormously lucky, right? The person who goes, I don't have to prove anything to God. I don't owe all of my ancestors any effort. You know, for 5,000 years, people were dodging saber-toothed tigers and catching the plague and running from Genghis Khan just for my stupid ass to be born. I don't owe them anything, but I owe them a thing because I want to play video games. These people are losers. You should walk through earth with force inside of you. As I walked into this hotel reception, everybody looked. Not because they know who I am, but because as I move, even if it's behind their head, people feel something and they go, it's an energy that comes from brutal competence. It's almost like an evolutionary thing where a rabbit can just smell a fox. It just knows. That's what happens when a predator walks in a room, even amongst humans. You pay attention next time you're in a restaurant. If a man who's truly dangerous walks in, nearly every other man kind of looks up at the same time. You feel it. You need to or you don't survive. We've evolved with that to live. That's who I am. I couldn't imagine not being that man. I've done that because I've been trying to prove myself to my lineage my entire life. I wake up every day with something to prove. I have hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm in fantastic shape, 4 times world champion, fighting the Matrix out here by myself. More. I will have to be braver. I must try harder. All I do is prove myself. So when I hear people go, I don't have nothing to prove, then loser. Peasants have never felt like they needed to prove anything. But kings felt like they needed to go and conquer land. Isn't that it's coincidental that the king, who already had it all, felt like he needed to go to some far-flung land and conquer it and take it and prove he's the king. But the peasants, oh, I don't have to prove nothing to nobody. You're a loser then. You're a dummy. I absolutely and utterly, completely have everything to prove to everybody all of the time. That's who I am. I will prove anything to anybody. If I sit and say X, I will prove it to anyone. I can be checked at any time. If someone were to come up to me in that lobby and argue with my ideas, I would have proved that my ideas are sound. If they would have attacked me, I would have destroyed them completely and absolutely. That's who I am. So yes, I have a lot to prove, my friend. And until the day I die, it will remain.